Right. You guys can see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Yes,
So, and I welcome everyone to this research project module briefing. I'm Dr. Suhel. I will be your module leader for this module. Today, I'm gonna give you an overview of this module. I'm gonna show you the module specification, what are the expectations, what are the academic requirements you should fulfill. I will also brief you as a student, what is your role in doing business research? And as you know that this is research project and you will be guided. There will be a supervisor appointed for you. And I will also brief you what are the expectations as a student you from supervisor, and what would be your role as a student with the supervisor. After that, I'm also going to show you the LMS, Student Learning Management System, whereby you can access all the required materials and resources to support this project. And then I will talk briefly about the research. So let's start. So this is the module description. This project is designed to enable students, especially business students, to focus on critical and important issues. Student will undertake an effective and systematic business research. They will also integrate theory and practice, especially in chapter 2, where we will take a literature review. You should integrate theory and then practice. You will incorporate understanding taken from a critical review of appropriate literature, which is the contemporary studies or the past studies done on the topic that you're going to do. Based on their project, on the sound analysis and arguments, especially in chapter 4, whatever the data you collect, you will do the analysis with the statistical tools of SPSS or Smart PLS. And then, of course, you're gonna give the findings, argumentations. And then in chapter 5, normally at the end, you will detail your findings and recommend. Right. So upon completion of this module, business research, so students are expected to be, able to evaluate, make recommendations for organizational development relating to the theme or issues impacting the participants' organization or any other organization that the student is familiar with. That means you will gonna choose the topic. You should be able to evaluate critically and come up with recommendations. Students are also expected to be able to design, develop, apply, and evaluate practically sound business research skills and techniques, taking into consideration appropriate ethical, commercial confidentiality, and data protection issues. So as a student, while you are doing your research, you are also expected to maintain ethics or business ethics. There will be certain confidentiality matters. You need to maintain it, and also need to keep in mind the data protection issues. Which are the things you can reveal to the public and which are the things you should not reveal to the public. Third learning outcomes is that students would be able to critically evaluate them or the issues impacting on the business organization, business models, drawing upon and developing concepts, model and theories to provide feasible solution to the problems and issues identified in the said organization. For research, the first thing you need to identify a problem. If there is no problem, there is no research. So you're gonna find a problem and then after doing the analysis and all, you should come up with your solutions and recommendations. So these are the three learning outcomes, the three key learning outcomes you are expected to achieve in this module. Right. This is the indicative contents, or you can say the syllabus. The first thing I believe all of you are going through now, the choosing a topic and designing the project, which you also can say as it is a proposal, business research proposal. I believe all of you are aware of this, and I will show you again the template. I believe the timeline given is till 31st of October. By this time, you should be come up with your proposal to find a research topic that you're going to do for this module, business research. And then the second thing, analyzing the literature and writing critical literature review. That is, you will be guided by your supervisor. In chapter 2, usually the student find the literature. I mean, the topic you have selected, you're going to find what are the other component research on the same topic, maybe not in the same place for a particular country that you are doing. So you can see the similar research has been done in some other places of the world, other countries, or even the other organization. So you're going to see this. You're also going to see the past studies has been done on the similar topics. Third is developing a conceptual theoretical framework and research framework, right? So when you are going the literature review, after the literature review, we need to come up with a theoretical framework. How it works, of course, your supervisor will guide you. Then you need to follow the methodology. Methodology includes that it can be quantitative study or qualitative study or mixed mode. At the bachelor level student, usually they go for a quantitative study, which is much more easier. Remember bearing the time frame, because you're gonna complete your research. I suggest mute your mics. Don't know whose mic is on. Right. So thank you. Right. Then in chapter 4, you're gonna collect data based on your topic. You're gonna do a survey. Then you collect your data, and you will analyze your data using the statistical tools. So the statistical tools like SPSS or Smart PLS or ANOVA, there are many tools. So I hope your supervisor will guide you through how to do this analysis. The most important part is interpretation. When you do analyze your data, you need to interpret properly with supporting information you have gathered in surveying. So, and the last part, forming argumentation and writing up your project, that is the ending part. So these are the areas you're going to cover in the business research project. Right. So let's move on. So the final project, the final outcome of your project will look like this. There will be 5 chapters. Of course, it will start with the abstract. I hope all of you have completed your 4 other modules and you have done the assignments related to the modules. While you did the other modules, you write executive summary, but in the project, you will write abstract. Although it is almost same, but the abstract will reinstate the whole idea in a summarized version. So a reader like us, while we go through your abstract, we know what is this research all about? What are the methods you have adopted? what is the possible, the intended outcomes, or what is your findings. So you will be summarize everything in one page. That is your abstract. After abstract, you should write acknowledgement. Acknowledgement means while you are doing research, you need help from your supervisor, number one. You need help from the organization that we are going to do your survey data, or maybe your colleagues, they are helping you. So you acknowledge, you thank them. So this is the part of acknowledgement. This is completely yours. This part is not going to be no marked. So you need to just thank the people who are helping doing in your research. All right. Now, this is the most important part, chapter 1 to chapter 5. I briefly give you some information. If you have pen and paper, you can note it down. Introduction, normally the students are discussing about the background of your problem. Remember, I mentioned earlier, research means research start with identification of problem. If there is no problem, no research. So in introduction, you will be discussing, you will be talking about the background of the problem. Then you will write your problem statement. Then you will come up your research objectives, perhaps research questions. Then the rationale or the significance of the study. You're going to briefly tell the readers what are the significance of this research, why you are going to do this. So this will cover your chapter 1, introduction. I repeat, you will briefly give the background of your problem. Then you are going to talk about the problem statement. Then you will discuss about the research objectives and research questions. Then you will briefly discuss the significance of the study, significance of your research. So you will justify why the topic you have selected is important. You will justify this. Then you will come to chapter 2. Chapter 2, literature review. That I have already explained, that you're going to finding what are the contemporary studies has been done in relation to your studies. Bear in mind, you cannot find a topic that has, or a problem that has already been solved. If the problem already been solved by somebody else, there is no need to research anymore. So you're going to find a unique topic, or maybe the same topic, then you need to find, justify what are the outcomes or what are the gaps from the previous research. So you're going to meet the gap, right? At the same time, you will find some theories and you will incorporate to your studies. You will come up with your framework, theoretical framework, and you also will be writing your hypothesis in chapter 2. Then you will move to the research methodology. As I mentioned earlier, research methodology, you're going to tell us, is it quantitative study or qualitative study, or you're going to adopting mixed mode. As I'm suggesting that as a bachelor level, students should go for quantitative study, which is easier. And within the time frame of 6 months, you should be able to done it. Right. Then you are going to also tell us who are your samples, who are your target populations that you're going to collect the samples or the data. And then you're also going to tell us what are the tools that you're going to use to analyze this data. In chapter 4 is analysis part. The data you have collected from your survey, you're going to analyze. This is most critical part. Your analysis has to be very convincing, has to be very realistic. And in chapter 5, you're going to come up with your conclusion. What are the findings? What are the unique things of your research? Perhaps to solve the problem or address the problem, you will give your recommendations. Bear in mind, in chapter, you have already stated your research objectives. So in chapter 5, you need to connect it back whether you have met the research objective, then it will justify your studies. And the last part is referencing. For Brigham University, we follow Harvard referencing style. So you need to follow this. There are specification, there are some marks allocated for this. I will show you later. Right. So the specification part, the specific requirements for this research project. The researcher has to be very complete, rigorous, well organized, which involves undertaking a systematic research, a systematic study. The business research project is a systematic study. What means a systematic study is that you have to follow the steps prescribed by the scholars. You have to use appropriate methods, the method I mentioned earlier. So you need to use the appropriate one. And you need to tell us why you're going to do this, which method you are adopting, and why you are adopting. To systematically collect and analyze data. Because if you choose a quantitative, you will distribute the survey form. If you choose qualitative method, you are going to take the interview of the people. So actually, based on the method you are going to adopt, based on this, you are going to collect the data. It will also argue why the results obtained are meaningful and explain any limitation that you are associated with them. So while you are doing the research methodology, you are going to collect data. If there are any limitation, you should mention it as well. You should be able to critically examining the relevant literature and research. You should demonstrate the capacity for rigorous analysis. As I mentioned earlier, your analysis has to be very thorough, complete, and realistic. You should display a clear and coherent expression. Your writing should be very clear and a coherent manner. You should also be vividly or clearly present your discussion and presentation. Bear in mind, this is a formal writing. You cannot adopt any short form, any slang word, or any form which are not formal. You should also be analyze and develop issues arising from the research and make appropriate recommendations for improvements. Yeah, that would be your ultimate objectives. So this is the key part. You need to be very attentive here. Your research is the word counting 7,000 to 8,000 words. If it is significantly low, you might fail in this project, whole project. If it is higher than 8,000, plus minus 10%, we always accept it. But if it is higher than the, maybe 9,000 or 10,000, you also gonna reduce the marks. So you need to be very careful. And your word counting start from your abstract until conclusion. Reference list is not counted in the word count. Reference or appendix, if you put, there is no word count. So word count from your abstract to conclusion. All right. Students, upon attendance of this research methodology workshop, which will be provided by your supervisor, either online or face-to-face, depending which center you are from. You are required to complete and submit research project within between earliest is 3 months and maximum is 6 months. Why there is a time frame? Some of the students they are full-time. They don't have any other commitment than study. So they are normally 3 months is enough for them. So 3 to 4 months, they can complete it. But there are also students who are working adults. They are working. They have some other commitments besides study. For them, it is 6 months. But whatever it is, whatever you're doing, I will suggest you to plan it earlier. Not necessary to submit end of 6 months. You can plan it earlier. You can plan it earlier to submit. You need to maintain a regular communication with your supervisor. I will show you later the communication. So I hope this is clear. Your research, the word counting between 7 to 8,000 words, and time frame minimum 3 months, maximum 6 months. So you can submit anytime after 3 months, before 6 months. Now, this is also important part to take note. What are the supervision procedures and rules? So supervision procedure and rules that student should expect from your supervisor. What are the things as a student you will get from your supervisor? Of course, number one is your work, your research will be supervised, it will be guided. Their work to be read in advance of the meetings. Their supervisor to be available. Of course, there will be supervisor available, but it is also to bear in mind that a supervisor, your supervisor is not only supervising you. So there are some other students. So you are advised to make appointments. The supervisor is to be approachable, yes. The supervisor to be constructively critical. They will give criticism of your work, which is okay, which is not okay, what you should do, what you should not do. Supervisor to have a good knowledge of the research project. Of course, once your proposal submitted, based on your topic, the expert or the supervisor will be appointed. So that receipt of work sent electronically, that means you will send email and it will be acknowledged within a maximum of working of a week, or except there is a supervisor is approved or annual leave. So as I mentioned earlier, you need to maintain a regular communication with your supervisor. If he or she is on annual leave, don't expect to do your work to be read and all. What supervisors expect of their research students? So what is your job now? Student would be independent learners. You will do your work independently. That doesn't mean that you will be left alone. Students produce and submit a work at least 48 hours before any scheduled meetings. So let's say you have your supervisor has given you an appointment and a meeting. So you should be sent at least 2 to 3 days early your work, so that he or she got enough time to read your work and give you the feedback. Students seek advice and comment on their work from their peers and others. So besides supervisors, you also can show your work to your colleagues and others who got knowledge about this topic that you have selected. Students are also listen to the advice and make informed decision before accepting or rejecting it. All right. That the student accept that it is the responsibility to take initiative and arrange a regular meeting with your supervisor. Now, to make appointment is your job. You have to find the schedule from your supervisor. You have to follow up with him or her. In case of a remote campus students that are very responsible for the regular electronic transmission of the work in the progress, right? Student make and keep appointment or give adequate notice, at least 24 hours of cancellation. In case you got an emergency, you need to inform your supervisor at least 24 hours for the betterment of both sides. Students are also to be honest when reporting the progress. So this is also another ethical issues. You need to maintain it. Now, the supervisor is responsible for collaborating with the student to produce a research timetable. That is your time with the supervisor. He will give a timetable, kind of guideline. He will also advising you on the structure of the project, feasibility of the methodology. Let's say you are choosing quantitative or qualitative. He will be advising you this, you should go or you should not go, like this kind of things. When you submit your draft, supervisor will give you a comment. Supervisor will give some criticism of your work, which will help you to improve further. Supervisor also will be giving advice regarding the submission of the project, right? Now, you need to also keep in mind the supervisor is not responsible for designing the field work. So when you go to collect data, not what you do or not, it's not a supervisor job. Supervisor is not also going to do your proofreading. So you have to do your proofreading, your addition of the works and all writings. So don't expect a supervisor to do the proofreading of your work. And supervisor is not going to chase you to arrange meeting, to arrange talk, this and that. So this would be your sole duty to follow up with the supervisor. I hope this part is very clear, because some of the students got wrong expectation, and if wrong expectation, it will give what they call the wrong impression, and then ended up with some havoc of your research. Now, please note that the frequency of the meeting will be decided between the student and the supervisor. So from the university side, we'll leave it to between a student and the supervisor to arrange, to find a good time and arrange meeting. But from university side, we need at least 2 progress reports will be required in the frequency level with the prerogative of the supervisor. So in the progress report, you will be stating what are the things you have done, and supervisor also will be commenting what are the expectation and what are the things you have done, what are the things are pending. So please remember that it is your responsibility and yours alone to maintain a regular contact with the supervisor. Some comment and advice arises as above. I said that earlier. It would be your job to maintain a regular communication. It is also essential that you make the use of spell and grammar check. Don't expect this from your supervisor. Your supervisor is actually the subject or your topic expert who will be guided your whole work. Do not expect your supervisor will correct your English usage and spelling. That is not their responsibility. What they will do, however, is tell you if your work is deficient in the thesis area, are you following a proper structure, proper methodology, your framework is correct or wrong, what are the dimensions should add or delete, how you should do your analysis, all right, this kind of things you will be guided. You are responsible for ensuring that your work is up to the expected standard in these areas, right? Now, there are some rules regarding contact with the supervisors, because we have experienced that there are some miscommunication and all between the student and the supervisor happening. Therefore, when the problem is related to the fact of some of the student for various reasons fail to maintain a regular contact with the supervisor, we notice that the students are not giving a proper what you call the time and expect the supervisor will be contacting them. This practice can have several outcomes and depending on the severity can attract the penalties. Yeah, so you need to bear in mind. The most serious outcome, the lack of contact with your supervisor, is where the student attempt to submit completely unsupervised project. So in failure to contact the supervisor, student tend to submit their unsupervised project. Such project will not be accepted for consideration for Bachelor of Business Arts research project. So we expect your research project must be supervised, must be guided, properly done. Remember, the regular context assures the supervisor that the work submitting to them is not plagiarized from the work of the others. Yes. So plagiarism is also another big issue in research. Failing to do your in-text referencing, if you do not cite properly, even though your intention is not to plagiarize, it will be plagiarized. I repeat, if you do not do proper referencing, even if your intention not to plagiarize, the work will turn to be a plagiarized work. So you need to be careful while you are citing the other work, other people work, other scholars work in your research. University regulation pertaining to the plagiarism detail in appendix. It is also mentioned in your student portal in LMS. Severe plagiarism actually eventually you will be failed in your project, and it's academically this is very unethical. Ethical consideration that you need to bear in mind that once your supervisor is appointed, you are advised to make contact with him or her as soon as it is convenient, both of you. There are two broad categories into which BA project, business project, fits low risk or high risk. This overwhelming of projects are low risk. So this is not a pure science. This is social science considered. Business project is social science. So all the students are required to comply the universal prescribed code of ethics while undertaking the research. Now, the submission of draft research project. All the students who progress the BABA research project are given the opportunity of handing a draft copy of their final document. Your supervisor will advise you in a good times, at least a date when you can do. I suggest when you are done with your complete work, the draft to give a feedback, to receive a feedback from your supervisor, you submit at least 1 week earlier. As I mentioned, you are not the only student your supervisor is supervising. Perhaps there are 1 or 2 more students also he is supervising. So you need to respect the commitment and time. The dates depend on allowing the sufficient time for a research supervisor to read, draft, and comment on it. So if you give at least 1 week time, it will be good for him to give comment and his view. It also allows sufficient time for you to take account any comments and suggestions made by your supervisor so that you can incorporate any required changes into your final document. So after your supervisor commentation and then feedback, you also need to have time to work on it. Do not consider you submit the draft to your supervisor and that will be final. Expect some comment, expect some recommendation or some changes, which you need to do. You need to adapt it very fast. The specific date of handing in your final project is generally dependent upon the graduation event for which you are aiming. So this is the last part of your degree, your top-up degree. And submitting the complete project is one of the requirements of your graduation. So there will be other times agreed on an ad hoc basis. If there are one times applies to you all, you will be informed. If there are any changes from the university, you also will be informed. Regardless of what date applies, you will be informed of good time as to specific date when you are required to submit your work. Like now, in your portal, you can see the submission of your research proposal is 31st of October. The same way, when your proposal is expected and your supervisor is nominated, then you will be given another timeline by which you need to submit your thesis. You can get this information from your student portal. This date is final and not negotiable. However, in extenuating circumstances, your supervisor may advise you to apply for a short extension. In all cases, extension granted would mean that you will submit for the next graduation date after the one that which is previously allocated. Now, in emergency cases, sometimes medical reasons or some other reasons, case-to-case basis, maybe a little extension can be accepted, but then you also need to bear in mind the graduation timeline and all. So if you submit, it is too late, perhaps you have to go for next graduation date. Right. Now, the marking guidelines, your project will be graded and it will be marked by the double markers. The first marker will be your supervisor, and the second marker, basically the module leader, which myself, I will mark for the second mark. Both marks assess your work independently. Only when the project has been read and marked by both assessor independently do they get together, discuss of your work and agree the final mark. So if there are any discrepancies, so there will be another discussion and we'll finalize your mark. Should both markers find difficulties in agreeing the final mark, third marker will be necessary, although this is not usually the case. So what happens if your supervisor significantly low mark and your second marker mark is very different from your first marker? Usually it goes to the third marker for a final mark, but this is very rare case. It doesn't happen usually. A sample project work mark sheet that details assessment criteria shown in the next slide. All right. So this is how you will be graded. You take note on this. Your abstract and acknowledgement is 5%. Introduction or chapter 1, 10%. Your literature review or chapter 2, 15%. Research methodology is 20%. Your analysis and findings, this is the most important part I mentioned earlier. If you go wrong in your analysis, you may come up with the wrong findings. Your whole research will go waste. So allocated marks is 30%. Conclusion and recommendation, 10%. Referencing, 5%. Your presentation and word count is 5%. So you bear in mind that the word count should be between 7,000 to 8,000 words. Now, this is a screenshot from your LMS, Learning Management System, under the title Research, under the title of Research Project. You can see that, sorry. So you can see here that in section 1, introduction, there will be some documents. First of it is your welcoming, then referencing system, Harvard referencing system. I advise all of you to go to this slide, the documents, Harvard referencing system. In my experiences, many of you cannot fulfill the requirements of the referencing, and wrong referencing, actually, you are getting the very low marks. Why I am saying so, I will show you in the next slide. Because of 1 or 2 marks, you cannot, you are missing a distinction grade or a merit grade, right? So you need to be very careful in referencing part. Again, wrong referencing can can be ended up with your plagiarized work, copying some other work, right? Then you'll also get your module specification, and you will find research project submission cover page. You also need to do a plagiarism declaration, right? Right. Let's move on. So in section 2, you see all the documents are there. You will have introduction to business research, overview of the process, problem statement, how we need to do a framework development, selecting a research, and then you find materials on the literature review, how to do that, right? You also find the research design, quantitative or qualitative work, variables, how to do your hypothesis testing, how to do the sampling, right? So all these informations are there. Perhaps later I will give you show you the original one. Now, From our side, we suggest there are 8 steps to follow. And those who are following these 8 steps, it is right. Those students are following these 8 steps. Chances are quite high you won't never go wrong. Right. So what are the steps you need to follow in doing your research? Number 1 is establish a general field of interest. Right. So this is what you are doing now. You are writing your proposal, and in the proposal, you need to indicate what is your area. What is your area of research? So after approving or identifying the area, you can discuss with your supervisor more. You have identified this area, how to go on now. Number 2, or stage 2, undertake background reading of your research area, consider appropriate research approach. Now, whatever the area you have selected, the second stage, you need to do a lot of reading. Example, now, worldwide is pandemic, and due to the pandemic, many workplaces, there are a lot of or increases of absenteeism or lack of motivation. So perhaps you have selected a topic to increase the employee motivation. Now, you need to do the readings. What are the other studies has been done regarding this topic? So you can find in your online library, in your student portal, or also you can go to the Google Scholar, whereby a lot of materials, you can find a lot of the journals or articles, recent articles published, you can go through. Stage 3, refine your ideas to develop a research proposal and give it to a title. Now, you will discuss with your supervisor and you will finalize your title. Decide on the most appropriate method for gathering data. So are you going to do a questionnaire or interviews? If you select questionnaire, it will be quantitative method. And if you select interviews, it will be qualitative methods. So based on your topic, area of your interest, and you discuss with your supervisor, what is the appropriate method to go for? At the third stage, at the fourth stage, you will prepare information gathering tools, questionnaires, interview guide. Then you will distribute your questionnaires to the people that you're going to collect data. At the same time, you also will be doing the review the literature, continue reading and writing for your literature as the stage is completed by. At stage 5, you will collect data for your research proposed project. At the same time, also continue reading for your literature for further review. And then you will do a draft methodology in chapter 3. In chapter 4, and at the same time, it would be your stage 6, you will find the data you collected, you will analyze this. Once you analyze, you will draft your result chapter. Your literature review should be 99% of written by this stage. So upon completion of chapter 3, normally students are proceeding to chapter 4. In chapter 4, you're doing the analysis. It will be following our stages. It will be your stage 6. Now, at stage 7, draft the analysis and conclusion for this chapter 4. Right? What are the findings of your analysis? And in stage 8, finish writing your whole project. That is your conclusion and recommendation. So we advise our students to follow these 8 stages, which are guided and a very systematic process to complete your research. Now, I will show you some, I will show your research project proposal. I hope you are doing it now. And I will also give a brief introduction about the research, but I would like to stop here for a while and like to know any questions so far. You can unmute yourself and talk.
Hi, morning. Hi, you hear me?
Hi, Steve.
No. Are you our project supervisor, or one will be assigned to us? I think I didn't understand that too clear.
Right. I'm the module leader for your project, and your center will appoint your supervisor for yourself.
Okay, understood.
Right. So any questions so far about the requirement or expectation of the research? Anyone? Felicia? All right. Then we.
Hi.
Yes, Steve.
Yes, Steve again, yeah. So you can choose any topic that you want to choose, or are we kind of narrowed down to just choosing, like, I mean, the reference was your workplace absenteeism. Can we choose anything that is out there that we desirous of doing?
All right, Steve. Bear in mind, you are a business student. So you have completed 4 modules as well. Anything related to the business, you can choose the topic. And you will write the proposal on it, submit to us for approval. Steve, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thanks, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, you can take some notes from my slide onwards now. This is quite interesting and important for you guys.
Good morning, Dr. Shuhel. Just wanted to find out one bit of information. In reference to the project, it must be guided along the current times that we're living, as we recently in the pandemic. It must be based on that, or you're looking at before time, or it must be surrounded with the COVID times.
Your research, you're asking about your research, right? Research timeline, right? Hello?
That's correct.
Right. So your research time for this whole project, irrespective of COVID or non-COVID, is minimum 3 months, maximum 6 months.
No.
No.
I think there was a time while you were talking, we got disconnected. I wasn't hearing anything that you were saying. No, I'm asking the project in particular, the research project. Is it based on the current times, assessing the COVID, the pandemic that we're going into, or you're doing research on something prior COVID as well? You know, you may have seen a situation and you want to do a research on it, but this is, you know, it's prior COVID. Or you're looking at the current times that we're working with?
This should be your current time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Right. Now, any one of you here, I would like to share what is research. Let's make it a bit interactive now. Do you have any idea what is research?
Yeah, where you are, you search and you check back and you research again and you search again.
Right. All right. Thanks, Steve. You have answered the right way. Well, what is research? You see, research in simple terms is to search again. To search again. As I mentioned, you must identify a problem then you find the solution, right? That is research. Research is also rigorous and systematic inquiry. So there are many problems in the world, but we don't follow the systems to find an answer. But in a research, in an academic research, it has to be very systematic. What is the systematic? As I mentioned, you need to identify a problem, need to state the background of the problem. You also need to justify the reason for doing this research. You need to do the literature review, I mean the contemporary studies on the same topic. Then you need to come up with your framework. You need to follow the methodology. You need to collect your data and do the data analysis, and then you will come up with your discovery. That is the solutions. So if I summarize, research is an organized and systematic way of finding answer to your questions. Remember in chapter 1, I said you need to state your research objectives and also research questions. So you need to, end of the day, you have to find your answers to the questions or the objective you set earlier. You need to justify whether you met the objectives or not. So if I explain further on the things, that a research has to be very systematic. It has to be organized. It has to be systematic in finding answer. And the question you raise has to be answered. Right. Excuse me. So the research is systematic in a sense that there is a definite set of procedure and steps, which I have mentioned, and I will show you again, which you have to follow as a student, which is done in order to get the most accurate result, right? In social science, we go for most accurate result. But there are some scientific research whereby the result has to be 100% accurate. For example, the medicine for what you call the COVID and the vaccine. This kind of scientific studies has to be 100% accurate. But in social science is the most accurate. Your work need to be organized. You have to follow the structure. Structure means I showed it earlier. You have to start with the abstract, then acknowledgement, then your chapter 1 introduction, then your chapter 2 literature review, your chapter 3 research methodology, in chapter 4 data analysis, in chapter 4 findings and recommendations, chapter 5. So finding answer will be justify your whole research. Now, in most cases, there is the end of all research. Finding answer is the end. Whether it is the answer to hypothesis or even a simple question, research is successful when we find answer. What happens if we don't find, there is no answer? You see, initially when there was a pandemic or the COVID-19 breakout, the researcher or the scientist started researching. They didn't find any answer. They couldn't find. Even you see the vaccine so far they have invented, still improvising. So if there is no, it doesn't mean that your research is 100% unsuccessful. No, in some cases you don't find answer. There is a requirement for further research, but in most cases we come up with the findings. Now, questions. This is the central to the research. If there is no question, there is then the answer is no use. So at the beginning of your research in chapter 1, you need to find a research objective and research questions. And in chapter 5, you will find the answer. Then you will justify your research objective has met. Now, I was saying the scientific method. Now, this is what, if I summarize, look like the scientific method. So observations, which is you are doing now, you are observing things. What are the area to be researched? Once you find your topic, then you formulate the research questions. When you find your research topic, your research objectives or questions, then you go for literature. What are the other studies so far has been done within this topic. Then you will, based on the literature review, you will develop hypothesis. You will go for collection of data. Then you will experiment it, analyze the collected data. Then you come up with the result, the conclusions. Share result, develop interventions, ask new questions. At the moment, at the bachelor level, you don't need. But those who are writing papers and all, the moment they are done with the research, they publish the paper, they publish the result. And then develop interventions, come up with a new research. I hope you have got an idea now, what is the scientific method all about. Now, again, so a research is a scientific process that validates and refines existing knowledge. So, as I mentioned, that you find a problem and you find there are some other researchers, other scholars has done some, but you still want further refinement of the existing knowledge, and you are coming up with a new knowledge, or you are generating new knowledge from your research that directly or indirectly influence the work of our practices. I mean the practitioners, the organizations, they are benefiting from your outcome, from your research. Now, this is what you to take note deeply, and then while you're doing research, every time you go through this, characteristics of good research, right? So these are the points you need to bear in mind while you are writing your thesis, your research. Your purpose or objective has to be very clear. You need to detail your research process step by step. There are 8 stages earlier I recommended, so you can go through this. You need to thoroughly plan the design, high ethical standards. You need to be very careful. You cannot copy paste some other people and you don't give the credits to them, right? So a good research got high ethical standards. Adequate analysis, you adopt a proper tools to analyze your data. Unambiguous presentation. So your presentation has to be very clear, very vivid, in a way people can understand. There cannot be a double meaning and a very unclear presentation. People are getting confused while they are reading your research work. So you need to be very careful. You have to write in a simpler manner. People can easily understand what you are going to present, or what are you going to tell us about this research. And conclusion justified, right? In the chapter 5, you need to come up with the conclusion and the summary of your work in a simpler manner, so we can understand. We read, we understand. We don't get confused. Limitations addressed. In doing research, there will be limitations. Limitation in terms of distributing your survey, your resources, whatever coming in. You need to come up and mention what are the limitations and what you have done to overcome these limitations. Number one, there will be limitation, no doubt. Any research got limitation, but you need to justify to overcome this limitation, what are the things you have done. And the last one is credentials, which is referencing. You have to reference properly. Now, and this is the opposite characteristics of a bad research. So earlier I showed you the good research. What are the points you must have? What are the things you must have? Now, this is the characteristics of a bad research. A bad research, number one, is plagiarizing, copying other people's work. You're writing a bit, and then you're copying from others. This is number one. Falsifying or manipulation of data, right? You are providing wrong information or manipulated information. This is number 2. Number 3, presentation information which is not true, right? This is very, very serious offense, very serious academic offense, and misleading respondents. So the people who are helping your answer your surveys, you cannot put them in a misleading manner, right? So I hope you got an idea of what to do in this module, right? And what are the expectations from this module to complete your work. Now, that's all about this course briefing. I hope you are clear now. I open the floor for any questions. If you would like to elaborate further. I open the floor for question now. By this time, Jenny, 1 minute. I have sent a link to the chat box. It is our standard procedure. You complete this form. It will take 1 or 2 minutes. It will help our university to get some feedback and provide you better service in future. Please complete this. Yes, Jenny, you can ask question now.
Hi, good morning again. I just wanted to know with regards to the question, I think you mentioned that we could concentrate on one company that we are familiar with. Is it possible that in case there's like more than one company, say maybe 2, is it wise we could use like 2? Like for example, with the COVID, where you hear that some companies may use that, I don't want to say an excuse or a reason to downsize their manpower. And this will cause other employees to be like overworked, demotivated, stuff like that. And it's happening in several companies. Or should we just stick to one company?
Right. A very good question, sir. Thank you, Jenny. And it's not for Jenny, for everyone here. It is, while you are doing research, it's not about the company. All right. It's about the topic. It's about the problem. So if I want to respond this question, Jenny, there is no limitation of the company. You can stick to 1 or 2. It's completely yours, up to you. But we have to find a topic. For example, you mentioned, right, that there are some HR issues. So you need to identify the problem and what are the methods you're going to adopt to come up with the solutions.
Okay,
right.
Thank you. Can I ask the next question?
Please.
Do we need to show evidence of like, say for example, would you use the methodology, the research methodology on them, right?
Yeah.
If we need to show evidence that we spoke to certain persons, we got permission, things like that, or are we just indicating in the front of the acknowledgement?
Right. This is also very good questions, Jenny asked. Okay, while you're doing your methodology, for example, let's say you choose quantitative method and you're going to distribute survey in a particular company, then of course you cannot just simply go and distribute. You need to talk to the HR that I'm so and so for my studies of bachelor. I'm doing this survey. Kindly allow me this and that. So a simple letter, which will be directed or you guided by your supervisor as well. So this kind of letter or approval you can attach at the appendix. So this will be considered as an proof or evidence.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Those who do not have any question, kindly complete this form, then we'll end our session here. Dimitri, any questions? Edmund?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
All right. All right. We go to Felicia. You have any question?
No, I'm good.
All right. How about Dimitri? I think we are lost. Chandini?
I'm good, thanks. I
All
don't have
right.
any questions.
Thank you. All right, that's very good. That's fine. If no question, Dimitri, fine. I understand your mic issues. All right. Have you guys completed this survey form?
Yes, I did.
All right. All right. How about others? Edmund, Dimitri? Okay. If you have still problem, you can contact to me. You can email me, or in your LMS, you just drop a message. I will get back to you. So I hope all the best for your research, and then upon completion of this, you will be graduated. I will be proud alumni of Britain University. So thank you very much. We end our session here tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
All right.